It is time to call to order the Guthrie Public Schools Board of Education regular monthly meeting, November 12th, 2018. Roll call, please.
Davis.
Present.
Watts.
Here.
Smedley.
Here.
Pearson.
Here.
Flagg.
Here.
Bennett Johnson.
Here.
Salee.
Here.
Mr. President, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Let us stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As we begin this meeting, let us pause for a moment of silence. Thank you. Agenda item 6 is the seating of new board member.
I state your name,
I, Ron Flagg,
hereby declare under oath
hereby declare under oath
that I will faithfully perform the duties
that I will faithfully perform the duties
as a member of the Board of Education
as a member of the Board of Education
of the Guthrie Public Schools
of the Guthrie Public Schools
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
all of the duties
all of the duties
pertaining to said office
pertaining to said office
and obey the Constitution
and obey the Constitution
and the laws of the United States
and the laws of the United States
and the state of Oklahoma.
and the state of Oklahoma.
Congratulations.
Welcome, Mr. Flagg. Agenda item 7 is student recognition.
Mr. Blake Whimsy from Foundation Insurance has a presentation for us tonight.
Hi everyone, I'm Blake Whimsy with Foundation Insurance, and this will be our second year to sponsor the Student of the Month program for the Guthrie Public Schools. And looking backward to October, that's our first one for 2018. And we've got Miss Teresa Avila nominated by her teacher, Miss Maker. And I'd like to read to you guys what she wrote for her nomination. She wrote, Miss Avila is always looking out to be a helping hand for others. She recognizes the value and qualities of others and helps them to be their best self. She is dedicated to being a team and serving her community. She is respectful, responsible, hardworking, and caring. She travels through adversity with grace and poise. I am honored to be Miss Avila's teacher and FCCLA sponsor. I hope to be like her when I grow up. So Teresa, on behalf of Foundation Insurance, we've got a $60 gift card to Stacy's Place here in Guthrie.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Congrats.
Agenda item 8, comments to the board by citizens registered to speak to the board.
We have two that are registered to speak tonight. The first will be Martha Case, and her topic is funding for gifted and talented programs.
So I'd like to make a statement. We welcome you here tonight. The board policy is your comments are addressed to the board. We cannot respond to comments because it's not, that topic is not an agenda item. And please keep your comments limited to 3 minutes. So, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you'll come up so the microphone can capture your
Yes, that's good. Yes.
I just wanted to address the issue of gifted and talented funding. My daughter is in the program, and we're very, very happy about that. Very pleased. She's just over the moon on the day when she has that gifted and talented program time. And I know from some other parents, it's just a small group, and I feel like there are probably more kids besides my daughter who'd be really fired up. The ideas that she gets from that time are exciting, and I think if we had the funding to do more than 1 hour a week, to get a few more kids pulled in. It could be a resource not just for those kids, but I think it could also be helpful for the teachers, that excitement is contagious, and then they become kind of leaders like Ms. Avila, and just wanted to put that out there, that it could be even more beneficial, perhaps.
Okay, thank you.
The next citizen registered to speak is Betsy Jones, and her topic is the bond proposal.
Hi, thank you for letting me speak to you tonight. Just to give you background, I'm a mom. I have 2 kids. I have a 4th grade student, Curtis Jones, and a 1st grade Amanda Jones. They're amazing little kids, so I'm their advocate, and that's why I'm here. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. I was excited to see that there's a bond proposal that you guys are looking at tonight. All those issues that are on there are very, very important to the success of our children. There is one issue on there that I feel is not being put up to where it needs to be, and that's the technology. Our children in Guthrie are lacking in the technology field. I don't know if you're aware, but the 4th graders this year are going to be taking their state test. They are made to be typing an essay, not writing it. You put that in front of a child who's used to writing instead of typing, that's a huge disadvantage for those children. We're setting them up to fail on that test if we can't get some technology in front of these children before 4th grade. My son is very, very gifted. He's also in that class with Quinn. In the gifted and talented at Bogarty, there's a 4th grader, 3 3rd graders, and 1 1st grader. They're all lumped into the same class. There is no funding for these students that are gifted who want to succeed in technology in these programs. We've got to do something better. Personally, I know 3 friends that have moved 2 miles across the border in order for their children to get the STEM programs, the science programs, the technology programs. That's a shame. We have an amazing staff like Mrs. Todd, Mrs. Watson, Mr. Graham, and all the teachers here that are passionate and very capable of teaching our students this, but they can't teach it if we don't give them the tools. We have to step that technology thing up, or our students are going to fall further and further behind every year that they don't get it. There are small schools that take advantage of their career techs, have partnered with them, have staff that is funded for their programs. They come in, they make these programs for them. Little schools like us, I know you probably think I'm talking about Edmond. It's not. It's Hobart, it's Cashion, it's Crescent, it's Stillwater, it's everybody. Guthrie is falling further and further behind, and when there's a statement at the bottom, we hope that the board will look at the technology and say, please consider this with the money that's left over. That's not good enough for our kids. Our kids need to have that media, that digital divide, where we're not so far behind. So that's really what I wanted to say, is that I'm passionate about my kids and the kids at school, the teachers. They've got to get this funding, and I understand that it's not all just funding. There's grants. We have Meridian Technology that's coming in. Let's partner with them. Lean on parents like me that are excited about that. Make that bond with Meridian Technology and get some of those funding that the other schools have. That's my time.
Thank you for your input. Okay, item 8B, are there any comments by the board members?
Mr. President, I'd just like to say that throughout the football season, I've traveled to several different fields and have been able to witness and the performances of other bands, and comparing it to the Guthrie Public Schools, I can just say hands down Guthrie Public Schools has the best band I've seen all season, and I just want to tell them that I really appreciate their performance and their interactiveness with the game, during the game, and at the halftime shows, how professional they look, and I'm just really pleased with our band.
Okay, agenda item 9, the superintendent's report.
I have several items. First of all, wanted to give an update on Charter Oak. We are, the gym floor has finish on it, and it looks great. It's curing right now as we speak, and they are in the process of assembling the bleachers on there. And so that is the last final thing on the construction project, and then the contractor has been working with us on punch list items and trying to make sure that we have the building fully what we anticipated. We're very pleased with how that's going. The next thing, several administrators, we went to Thanksgiving luncheon at Meridian Technology Center. We have, as you know, many partnerships with them, but the item that we enjoyed the most was enjoying a Thanksgiving lunch that was prepared in part by some of our students, and they were very pleased to see us there, and it's a fun time, and the food's always really good. Yesterday was Veterans Day, and today students at each site participated in assemblies. I was fortunate enough to attend assemblies at Central Elementary and at the high school. We certainly want to thank all the veterans for their service to our country. Some good news from our special ed department. Tamara Kurger, a high school math special education teacher, received a 2018 NEFE, which is National Endowment for Financial Education Jumpstart Educator Scholarship. It was awarded to 5 teachers who use the NEFE products to teach personal finance in the classroom. The scholarship covers travel, registration, and instruction at a school in Ohio for her to assist her in professional development. Also, it is School Psychology Awareness Week, and we are fortunate to have 2 school psychologists who serve our Blue Jays. And so if you see a school psychologist, hug them on their special week. That's my report.
Thank you. Agenda item 10 is the presentation of the Long Range Planning Committee priorities.
We have a member of that committee that's going to join us, also reminding the board and the audience that we had 2 board members that participated as committee members, Janae Pearson and Jennifer Bennett Johnson. But tonight we have Zach, come on up. Mr. Zach Robbins, who is on his second tour of duty with the Long Range Planning Committee, and the letter has been in your packet, and I know some of you have read the letter, but he's going to fill in some of the blanks on that so that you can maybe understand a little bit more about why the letter was worded the way it was and how we're going to how the board can understand the recommendations. Take it away.
Good evening, board. Thank you for allowing me to come in here and speak on behalf of the committee. As Dr. Simpson said, this is my second time. I was able to be a part of the original 2013 Long Range Planning Committee, along with Mr. President here and a couple of others that aren't on the board any longer. As we met in 2013, we walked through, looked through at each and every building, went stem to stern, visited other school districts, got a good understanding of what a good building looks like, what problems are, where there are deficiencies. Then we also met with bonding agents who taught us and showed us how to do the math on the subject. And so we were able to get quite a bit accomplished at that time. And then we put that recommendation forward, and the board responded. And as we know, the citizens of the Guthrie Public School District passed that. And I'll just kind of go off on my own on behalf of myself as a member of that committee. It was very good to see how well that bond was set and made, and then it's great to see those things that were said were going to be done. I believe that the school district looks better and is on the right direction, though there is a lot of work. And so a few months ago, Dr. Simpson contacted me again and asked me if I would again be a part of the committee, which I gladly accepted. And we brought on a few new folks with us, and so we again caught us up to speed on where the buildings were at. We went and toured. I didn't get to. I was gone that night, the first night to tour the new building, but have heard great things about it, and look forward to seeing it real soon. And so then we begin to talk about what we think are the most needed things for the future. As you guys look towards another bond, look towards the future, we sat down, looked through things, ran numbers, again, talked to the engineers, architects, all of those things, and we came up with a grouping of things that we thought were the most important for the district today. The first thing that we looked at was the necessity of building a new school to replace Cotterill because of the condition, because of the difficulties in getting it up to compliance with the ADA and things like that. We looked at it and determined that it would be the most important thing, big ticket item, so to speak. As going through there and just looking, that's kind of what we had, when we did the original long-range planning committee, we kind of talked about, what would be, like the future down the road. And if you remember, Mr. Salee, we talked considerable amount at that point in time about that. But we knew that the new school, the Charter Oak Elementary, was most important at that time. And so, looking at this, we looked at the student space, as the paper says, and the design of the building, and realized that it is not something that we really deem, from talking to, not just us, because none of us are engineers or architects. We built a few things around the house and things like that, but we did find and spoke to experts about the feasibility of saying, hey, how can we do this? Is this a building that could be saved? And so the Long Range Planning Committee felt like the most important thing is to address Cotterill Elementary, and that was pretty unanimous, pretty obvious choice there, and so that was our first item, our first thing that we really felt needed to be addressed, just because of there's just so many things. It's kind of like, where would you really even start? And so the determination from us, and like I said, we're just a group of citizens that are just kind of, looking at the obvious, and that's where we began. Is there anybody have any questions or anything?
I think one of the items one of the things that the committee looked at also is trying to address needs district-wide with our facilities. Cotterill obviously is a challenge because of the condition of the building, but when you pair that with the financial schedule of what we can bond for, it's not feasible to consider 2 elementary schools in one bond issue, because we just don't have enough money available to do that. But and if we attempted that, it would take so long to have enough money available to address some other needs that are pressing right now on infrastructure of some of our buildings that are even newer, that's why the committee went in that direction. I don't know if Ms. Bennett Johnson or Ms. Pearson have anything they want to add from the committee meetings.
Well, it was much more feasible if we do this, to rebuild on the grounds we already have than to go look for more land, because we'd like to save the money to be able to use for other options also. And so the idea is to build up instead of out, I guess, on the building more than anything else.
And I think, too, our district has had so many challenges for so many years, and now to have the opportunity to address issues within the district, infrastructure and buildings and safety. We've tried to identify the big ticket items, as well as address some of the more immediate, the school security and the technology. And like Mike said, the funds that we have are not quite those that a lot of the other school districts have, and so we try to identify those items that we can address in a timely manner and make the biggest impact within the district.
Yes, that is absolutely correct. The second thing that we looked at as a recommendation is to work with our architects and engineers to provide secure entrances at all the sites. And we know that, there's nothing that we can really do to keep or solve or take care of all issues or problems. But we looked at those. We looked at those schools. We discussed it. We talked amongst ourselves. Again, we went back to things that we had seen, newer schools that had been built with these things in mind, and talked to the engineer and architects and about making it to where it's not just a situation where it's just come off the street into the school. And that's never a good situation, though it's a situation that a lot of our schools have. And it's something that we really felt like within the future, within things that we need to look at, that's one of the things that we do. Because, we're all, we're all parents for the most part. And, each day when that's that thing that drives us, is to know that our children are safe and secure. And so we just really felt like that was a very important thing that needed to be addressed. Again, as just a recommendation, because, as you guys know, you guys are ultimately in charge of that. You guys are ultimately will decide to author as you see fit. But that was just our recommendation, that we needed to start to begin at some place. Like I said, there's with all the schools with different entrances and different things and different ways being built in all, from the oldest school to the newest school, and everything in between. We just needed to begin to look at some way to give our schools just a little bit of security, a little bit of buffer, just from being on the street, in the school with the students. And that was our second thing. Our third thing is to address the HVAC needs in the district, throughout the entire district. As we know, some of those were taken care of with the last bond. That would have been the high school that's still being
High school and Central.
And with the funds available, that was kind of where we looked at from that, and what you guys decided as a board. But we just kind of looked and said, it would be nice to settle this district-wide, to be able to have heat when we need heat, have cool when we need cool, have proper airflow. As we know, as we've looked through buildings, things were added on and hallways were closed off, which created different humidities, which create mold and all sorts of other things. And as it is, it's just one of those things that we would think that it would be nice just to say, okay, everything's up to date. Everything's taken care of, at least in this. Because I'm sure the teachers here, the educators, would say it's pretty hard if it's 101 in the summer, in the early parts of the school year, and 58 degrees in the wintertime. It's pretty hard to get kids to focus on what they need to do if there's that level of discomfort. And so so our recommendation was to try to address as many of the HVAC needs throughout the entire district. Another thing that we talked about was the completion of the exterior renovation of the junior high. We all love the new windows. They look great. Kudos to you guys for having that, for seeing it through. It, just like Central, is absolutely beautiful. It's go by, everybody that is in my car, I always say, look at those new windows, and we were very proud of that. And the junior high, as we've met through with the engineers and architects, we know the junior high is a great building. It has had issues and things, and one of those places where opinions go all over the place. But through talking with them and hearing them and using their knowledge and wisdom and education, it's a great place. And it would be really great to see it, that exterior renovation, that envelope, that closed up to where the outside stays out and the inside stays in. And that was our next. And that dealt with, Dr. Simpson, if you can help me here, that talked about roofing.
Tuck pointing, roofing if needed, and the windows.
Yes.
And some additional waterproofing.
Yes, and then the rest of the back of the building.
Finishing the whole building.
Yes, and that way the envelope would be around the building, and like I said, the outside would stay out and the inside would stay in, and there wouldn't be any transfer between that with that done. Another thing we talked about was at Fogarty, going through it and updating the restrooms and auditorium. We have also, through our time with the architects and engineers, we've looked at Fogarty as a very viable and very good school. It just needs a little love. And we had talked about the necessity and need for new restrooms there. And then we had also talked about the necessity for some updates, renovations to the auditorium area there. It's a part I know that as a Fogarty dad, I know that auditorium is a central part of that school. A lot of things go on there, and it's just one of those things that would be a really nice thing, a nice addition to that school, is to have that updated with new seating, lighting, things like that. It would just be a really good upgrade there. Plus, it would also give some things towards that school also. Because, you know, as we begin to look at this, you have all of these with the neighborhood schools. Now you have different places, and you really have a desire to say, you know, we want to look at how we can not necessarily just make people happy, but actually do make upgrades to things as money's available and that. And so that's what we looked at. And then we talked also about renovating all of the restrooms at the high school. And again, with the new HVAC system that will be installed, was covered by the last bond, correct? That this would be another upgrade there to the high school in having new restrooms throughout that building. And then finally here, and it says, we talked about this quite a bit when we built this letter. And it says, finally, the committee urges the board to continue the commitment it began in 2015 in allocating portions of future bond issues toward technology, enhancing safety, security, and the learning environment of the students of Guthrie Public Schools. It was very important for us to let you guys know that was not a tag on, that was not a byline, that was not just a, hey, here it is, you know, if you can find a little money, throw it that way. But technology is a far-reaching thing. And we saw how technology has allowed us to monitor all the schools. The SROs are able to look on and see all over all of our schools now. That's technology. Then the same technology helps a child learn. And so technology is a very far-reaching thing, and so it wasn't really our desire to say, okay, we need X amount of laptops, so many iPads, so many things. Because as we know, you can price something one day, and 3 days later, it's obsolete. And so it was at the end of the letter, but it in no way, shape, or form just said, hey, we just want to toss you a little money here or there. It's very important to us. Technology is super important. Technology is used, like I said, in everywhere. Everywhere from phone systems to being able to track what doors open. You know, there's a lot of different places and a lot of different areas where it goes. It's not just an iPad or a laptop or a computer or here. It's very far-reaching. And we just wanted you guys to know that it's very important for us to let you guys do your job. And you obviously know that we need lots of technology. And we need lots of things. There's lots of areas. But we just did want to say, hey, one of our recommendations is for you guys to look, is for you guys to do the research that you all do and make that determination where it is. Because for us, we're just a committee who gives a recommendation. It's just Dr. Simpson basically convenes us, brings us together, and says, hey, let's give our opinions and citizens to the board, and then they will make the determination from there. But technology is incredibly important to every single person that served on the Long Range Planning Committee. But that is an area where we say it's the giant elephant in the room. We realize that technology needs to be those needs need to be addressed. But we're going to defer to you guys because you already know we need technology needs also. And so that's why it was there. But there were several people there that really were afraid that that's how it would come off. But I really wanted to make sure that you guys know, and anybody that would see this, that just because it's there, it just happens to be that paragraph on the letter. It is very important. It's very important to each and every one of us that we're on there. If you guys would like to add any of that.
I agree completely.
Okay. And so, is there any questions that anybody might have?
Well, I know as Travis has served previously, and Janae and I get to serve this committee, and get to see how involved in the ideas and the commitment that everyone coming in and trying to identify what the issues are and come up with the best source. I know for me as a board member on the original bond, that was important, knowing that these recommendations came from parents and from community participants and administrators. So thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Robbins, I wanted to thank you and the entire committee for taking the time to meet. I know that's a significant time commitment. And as a board member, and I believe that the entire board feels this way, we really value your input and your recommendations. You guys are the committee, you're the advocate for us in the community as we go forward with these bond issues, and having you there to answer questions as they come up. But it's very helpful, and I really appreciate and respect your time that you've invested in this district.
Thank you.
So I want to say thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks, sir.
Okay, agenda item 11. Presentation of district annual dropout report for fiscal year 2017 to 2018 by Mr. Doug Ogle, the Assistant Superintendent.
Mr. Slee, if it's all right, I'd like to do, I think it's 12 and 13 on their presentation with the ACT, the dropout, and the remediation rate all in one slide.
Okay.
We're required by the State Department as one of our areas is to track our ACT trend data for 5 years. And so the first several slides are going to be our 5-year trend data with the ACT. So as a district, total tested, we talked about this every year. You can see that it keeps continually going up from 2014 to 2018, where we topped out at 193 students. And so the state has helped with that because they do fund the testing, and so there's more kids that are testing now. There's a look at the state. As you can see, just like we talked about, as we're growing, the state is growing just because of the state is providing funding. We did dip a little bit for 2017-18 as a state, a little bit of the amount that were tested. But we're still showing that increase of the amount of students that are taking the ACT.
Doug, is this just based on the junior class last year, or is this
No,
the entire
this is-
district?
This is the seniors that graduated last year, the last test that they took. When we get ready to do the grade cards, Mr. LeGrand, when he gets up here, that will be the juniors, the test that they took for their subject test. So this was the seniors that graduated last year, their last ACT score that they took. So they could have took 6 tests, but it's the last one that they took that's reported.
It's not an aggregate of all their scores.
I'm sorry, but I'm back a page on the total tested. Does that include the sophomores, juniors, and seniors that took the test, the 193, or is that just a,
That right there would have just been the seniors.
that would, okay, that's what I was asking.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So for the English, when you look across there, 5-year trend, we did take a dip this year. I'd like to tell everybody you're not comparing apples to apples because these are different kids every year, with different things that are going on and where they're at. And so this is one thing Mr. LeGrand and I talked about is, we took a dip. What are we doing? We went back and kind of discussed some things. And so I know when Mr. LeGrand gets up, he's going to talk a little bit of what they're doing at the high school. But we had a pretty good trend, and we're trying to get to that state average. And one thing I didn't say is you're going to see all of our district is in blue and the state average is in red, and all the slides that we present tonight. And so a little behind there, we took a step back, and so we're going to work on that as a district to try to get that to state average and higher.
Hey, Doug, whenever I was kind of looking through this, when did we switch to the new standards, teaching standards?
On the English, was that 2 years ago? Good question. The math, when you're looking at that, it's been pretty consistent there. One of the things I would say is, we cut into that from 2017 to 2018. Still not the same kids, but we closed that gap. And so, looking at that right there, we're getting close to that state average. We're just a little bit behind, but we're making good trends. And when you see some of the data that we're going to present in a little bit, it makes some sense with our higher achieving kids. So, our reading, basically the same as we were in 2017. We're in 2018. We didn't gain any ground, but we didn't lose any ground. And so that's where we're at there. Of course, like I said, we keep wanting to at least get to that state average and get higher. Science did make a little bit. The state average dropped. We stayed consistent with the 18.6 from last year. And so made a little bit of ground there. And so we'll keep trending and try to get there. And this is a composite of all of those tests together to get your average. And so, as you can see, we're still about the same as we were last year. The scores dropped, but we dropped right there with the state average. And so, didn't gain, didn't lose, but still got some work to do. Remediation rate. This would have been 2017 seniors, because it takes a year to get that data in. And so when you go back 2 years, we had 1.1% of the students that graduated have to take a remediational science class. To the state average is just, you can see right there, less than a half. The other three, I'm really, I'm pretty proud. We're right there. English, 16.7. And 16.2 was a state average, so we're really, really close there. And then look at our math. We really, compared to where the state average is at 34.7, 27.2 of our students had to take remediation. So, and then the last one there is reading. And we're at 5.4 of our students when the state average was 9.3. And so I think we're doing some good things with our students. They're getting them ready for the ACT. I know Mr. LeGrand and his staff are still working on ways to prepare them. And so having a senior at home right now, I know that we are looking at different ways to get the students prepared as well. So
This, Doug, back up for just a second. This slide that you see right here is, I would say, the most significant measure of what we're doing. And when they go to the next level and they don't require as much remediation as the state average, that speaks highly of what we are accomplishing at the high school.
But why wouldn't those numbers, I mean, it seems to contradict the ACT scores in the math. I mean, why is the district ACT mathematics score lower than the state, but yet a remediation rate significantly lower? I mean, you may not have a good
I don't have
answer
the
for
answer
that,
to
but.
Well, too, you gotta realize that not all these kids that took the ACT are going to college. And so, bottom line is, probably your top end kids are the ones that are ultimately going on to college. And so, those kids are not requiring as much remediation as just anyone.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I think
Yeah,
it's an
that's a good
important
answer.
point because remember that when the state 2 years ago started paying for all of our seniors to take the ACT, previously, the kids that were at least targeted for being college bound were the only ones taking it. Now, all of our seniors are taking it. And you can see as those numbers jumped, they jumped with students that would otherwise probably not take that test. And I think that's a significant portion of this when you look at the historical data that skews it. So.
One of the things I want to say before I go into the dropout report is the ACT as is reported here is actually a score, and so those are what students, and so that's the average. When Mr. LeGrand gets up and talks about the junior test, it's going to be a percentage of the students that meet college readiness. And so I wanted to say that, so when you start looking at when he gets up here, it's not this, we're not looking at scores, it's going to be a little bit different how they present that. Okay, so the secondary are required to have a dropout report or an exit report. And so 7th grade, I want to show you, these are kids that when we started the school were on our rolls and then exited somehow and did not get into another school that was a diploma issuing school. And so we had 35 in 7th grade that exited to another school, 1 dropout, 1 exited to homeschooling, and 253 finished out the year. So in 8th grade, we had 36 that exited to another school, 3 dropouts, 2 exited to suspension, and then 227 finished out the year. So 4 dropouts out of about 510 students. And so those are students that may end up coming back or go to another school, but when they run this exit report, if they are not in another diploma school and they're still not on our books, they're considered a dropout. The high school, 9th grade, we had 39 that exited to another school. We had 12 dropouts, 1 exited to homeschooling, 1 exited to suspension, and then 256 finished out the year. 10th grade, we had 23 exit to another school, 8 dropouts, 1 exited to homeschooling, 1 exited to suspension, and then we had 273 finished out the year. 11th grade, 16 exited to another school, 11 dropouts, and 219 finished out the year. And then in 12th grade, we had 4 exit to another school, 9 dropouts, 1 exit to another home school, 1 exit to suspension, 13 finished out the year. We had 188 graduate. On that 13 finished out the year, that just means they did not meet the requirements to graduate. We have several of those 13 that over the summer or back in the fall will come back, but they do count that they did not graduate on our graduation report. And so if you put all that 9 through 12, we had about 4% of our students that dropped out.
Okay, Doug, when you say on 12th grade, 188 graduated, and then back to page 2, we talked about 193 seniors took the ACT. Are you telling me that almost 95% of the class took ACT tests?
And we're required, when we start talking about the other tests, we have to test at least 95% of our students.
So 95% took the ACT
Yeah,
test?
we get dinged if we do not test at least 95%.
Doug, how does that dropout rate, how does that compare to previous years? I mean, do you have anything to compare to? See how
It's pretty significant, about the same. When we go back and look at that, and I'll add that next year so we can go back and I'll do another 3 or 4 year data, and when we have committees, I'll bring that next time, but it's pretty close to the same. We see that in 9th grade, we do have a lot of kids that when they get in high school, they get in there, they drop out. As you can see, as we come through, the same trend data is by the time they get to seniors, the dropout's really low. Of course, they're about to graduate, and so the dropouts that we usually have there are the kids that get really behind. But one of the things that the high school administration staff has done is starting their junior year, if their credits are way behind, we offer them favor right away to get them caught back up and go to alternative schools. So they're catching those and monitoring those early, and so that's why our dropout rate is going down a little bit and our graduation is going up.
One of the things that we need to issue a caveat here on when we look at historical dropout data is the state has changed the definition of a dropout about 3 times since in the last 12, 13 years. And so it's hard to compare over a long period of time and have it truly be apples to apples as well. So, and as they've made those changes, they've made it more sensible, but it's still difficult to compare other than in small bits. So.
Any other questions?
So I was curious, all these grades, there are a lot of kids exiting to another school. Are they being replenished by kids coming from other schools to our district?
Well,
And so our enrollment numbers pretty static throughout the year, or is it?
Our enrollment is about even because if we go back, our October 1 count is what we look at that we just finished, and we were actually up, I believe it was 7 students, and so we've been gaining about as much. Our ADM did go up. I believe it was, what did I tell you today? They told us 40 some students.
Yeah, that's not what you said. 45 maybe.
And so we are going up a little bit, but one of the things that we're tracking and the registrars are where are these students going, and so we'll have some data to be able to find out, where are they exiting to? Are they going to other public schools? Are they going private? Are they going charter? And so we'll have some data that we'll be able to look at that as well. Okay. Anything else for me?
Thanks, Doug.
Dee, can we get that bottom block off? It's bugging me. Look how anal I am.
Yeah. I keep looking at it going, what's that supposed to say?
Okay, that concludes agenda items 11 and 12. Thank you, Mr. Ogle. Agenda item 13, presentation by principal, Ms. Marcia Todd, Ms. Susan Davison, Mr. Robbie Rainwater, Mr. Chris LeGrand, of the final Oklahoma School Testing Program results for Fogarty, Guest, Guthrie Junior High, and Guthrie High School for 2017 to 2018.
Okay, for our OSTP last year.
Technology. See, we need new technology.
Okay, so we're going to start with math. Our 3rd grade math, last year, the state average, as we said earlier, was in red, was 42%. The 3rd grade average was 25%. We've always, that's always been a weak point for us. We kind of knew going into this year that we would drop based on them changing the cut scores on the testing. We are working toward bringing those math scores up. Of course, we are, dissecting those new standards bit by bit. We're looking at our data
looking at data, tracking every single one of those students across the board, and can pretty much nail by the end of the year who's going to pass and who's going to fail that test. We are intervening and trying to remediate as much as we can for third grade, but that's something that we continue to work on. For our reading, again, they adjusted those cut scores to, I believe, national levels. So the state average was 34% proficient and Fogarty's was 16% proficient. I went back and totaled our RSA numbers for this so that we would have those, and the state average for RSA was 78%, and Fogarty's RSA numbers were 67%. That's the portion that they have to pass, the reading comprehension and vocabulary portion of the test that they have to pass to be promoted for the RSA.
Did you say those percentages again?
For the RSA?
Mhm.
Yes, the state average was 78%, and Fogarty's average was 67%.
And just because I'm not familiar with the vernacular, RSA,
Is the Reading Sufficiency Act, which is part of our Oklahoma law.
Third grade reading.
The third grade reading. Third grade reading law / RSA.
thank you.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Marcia, is third grade the first official state testing we see?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
So
It is.
this is kind of where we see, where we're starting with.
Yes, yes. We're collecting lots of data over the, and I'm really anxious to do that with neighborhood schools. But tracking those kids from first, second, third grade, all the way up. So this year we have a good line of data on our third graders all the way back from kindergarten to kind of help us, see if how they've grown each year, if they've had the same gaps and what we're doing there. Any more questions?
Okay, I'm going to report and update you on our guest numbers. On our fourth grade, we have 31% at guess proficient, and the state average was 37%. So we're kind of closing that gap. With fourth grade ELA, 31% of the district and 36% of the state. One thing we've always done is with having fourth grade at guess, we're able to start looking at that now. Working with fourth grade teachers, but they're with the neighborhood schools. But my fifth grade teachers are looking at this because they're looking at what standards were they weak at in the fourth grade so that they can make sure they're building on those and covering those even more in depth when they get to those same type standards. Fifth grade, we saw some growth. We have 31% at the district average, and that was 1% above the state average. But how do you brag on that when it's still 31%? So we're glad we're above the state average, but we know we still have places to go. Our ELA is 39%. Again, fifth grade above the state average. The state average was 37% in the language arts. The science, we were just 1% below state average, and that's much closer than we have been in the past, so we were really excited about that growth there. One thing I would say about fifth grade, it will start the online test this year, and as one of the parents had mentioned, fifth grade is the writing test, so they will be actually doing their writing portion on the keypad. We have been working towards that. All of our iPad cards were replaced over the summer with Chromebooks to where there is actually a keyboard that they're using. And so that, basically I have to where every class at one grade level could have technology in their classroom. I have 6 Chromebook carts, and then the 3 computer labs are still in place. So we do have that to where at least every class, every day could be on one grade level. But basically the way they have it is each team of about 3 teachers shares that so that each day they can be transferring it. So we are working towards that technology.
Susan,
Mhm.
are they learning how to type? Or are they just pecking?
No, that is actually, and when I talk about 6th grade, which granted 6th grade is not doing the writing test, 5th grade is. No, they're trying to start that. We used to have a program at GAS long ago. And so they're doing some online. They found an Epic that they're working on, and so they're working on keyboarding in 5th grade. But it's a bad place to start when they've got to take that writing test, but they're doing the best they can. And I know we've talked about it within the principals that we need to start at those lower grades with that keyboarding. So they figured out they can't use their thumbs. So they're trying it, but it's not working for them. So we're working at it. Sixth grade math, we are at, the state average was at 28%. Again, we were at 33%. We're above that state average, but we still want to continue growing. Sixth grade ELA, 35%. We were a little bit below the state average there at 38%. One thing sixth grade's looking at is they're trying to following something that the junior high's done. We're trying to, in our last 35 to 40 minutes of the day, doing a study skills with the students who did not pass the state test. And about every 3 to 4 weeks they switch. 1 week we'll focus on the ELA. ELA teachers are doing intervention with those kids who didn't pass. The other classes are doing some type of enrichment. We've got anything from life skills, newspaper, just different things. One teacher's just doing art, things that we've had to not focus on in the curriculum because of focusing on that. So students who pass the test are doing some of those. And then the next set will be math, and we'll pull those kids who haven't taught the math. And then I know just now they're going to redo some MAPS testing to see if we've had some growth. And, that's kind of an incentive for those kids to grow in their skills as they can get out of that class and start doing the other, we call them electives, as they grow. So that's one of the new things we're trying at sixth grade to build on this. Any questions?
I'm just curious with what you just said and them having to start taking their test online and typing and stuff. Do you expect statewide that's going to be a disaster? Or do you think everybody else knows how to type? I mean, I just don't see that being easy for these kids to do at that
I don't
age.
think it will be. I mean, we were still working on getting kids to write really well, on the
Exactly.
writing test. So I think statewide it's going to be a difficult thing for them.
And what grade is that they're having?
Fifth.
Fifth grade.
Fifth and eighth grade are the writing test.
So I'm kind of curious or interested, since we're talking about elementary, as my boys were going through the lower grades, it seemed like there was some experimentation with team teaching, rotating to different classrooms, and it seemed like it went back to one teacher.
We're still team
We're still
teaching
team, I was wondering if yeah, okay.
Mhm. Sixth
what
grade
the-
is also even trying to break it up more and doing more of the junior high type schedule, just because we felt like some of their disadvantages at sixth grade were those kids are older, and if they traveled with the same kids all day, that's when in the afternoon they felt like they were having some discipline problems. So they're trying to break up the kids they're with to where they're not with the same kids all day, actually, in sixth grade.
And the same thing for the lower grades, Ms. Todd?
For team teaching?
Yeah, it's still team teaching, or are we back to just a homeroom teacher, or?
This year, since we went to neighborhood schools and we're kind of odd in numbers, we are not team teaching this year.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for me? All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, for the junior high, seventh grade math, state average was 35%, and we were at 39%. I'm just going to run through these. You guys stop me anytime you want to ask something. Seventh grade ELA, 28% for both us and the state average. For eighth grade math, state average is at 20%, and district at eighth grade level is 38%. And for ELA, 34% at the state level and 39% here in Guthrie. And for science, again, I think I said this last year, that for several years we stood up here and science was the scapegoat. Now they're the highest average statewide, so.
You think
figured
that's
that one
due
out.
to the STEM program?
I think that has something to do with it as far as our scores in relation to the state average, but my comment was more related to, for a while, the state average for science was in the bucket, and everybody's like, what are we doing, science? And now it's the highest, so just statewide. So it's trying to figure out where that's going to land or what they're looking for is kind of difficult at times. But we're pretty pleased. Kind of like what Susan said, though, even though we're at or above state average in every subject, it's hard to get excited about 40, but we are we're pleased, but we're not satisfied type situation. We're going to keep working, try and get better. One thing that I said last year, and I'll reiterate again today, is that research is showing that what a normal 8th grade kid is doing in math today is what the average senior in high school did in the 90s. And I think what you're really going to start to see, when they talk about rigor, I don't think they've really figured out what rigor means to them. So they just take a higher grade level and throw it down on a lower grade level and say it's rigor, as opposed to keeping it at the same grade level and asking them tougher questions. Higher level thinking skills and taxonomy and that sort of thing. But I think what you're really going to see is you're going to start to see, because this being the second year with these type of scores in relation to a national test that is not a grade level test, you're going to see a lot of fluctuation from year to year, because you're going to have one year where kids just aren't ready to be a senior when they're in 8th grade. And then you have another year where you have a large group of kids that can handle that type. You know, it's very developmental, and I think we're, well, I know we are, at times asking kids to do more than what they're developmentally capable of doing at the time. But anyway, I think you'll see a large fluctuation in that from year to year as we keep going through this, and especially as long as they keep norming this to a national test that's not a grade level test. So, but any questions?
Do you all still offer keyboarding in 8th grade?
Yes, keyboarding is, every kid will take that
Is that
1-9 weeks. It's in a rotation with our creative writing classes. What we found with our creative writing is less is more. We can get more out of kids by asking them to write 18 essays than we can by asking them to write 40 essays. They will stay hooked up. Once you get into the third 9 weeks and they're still writing the same type of essays over and over and over again, you start to see not only does the quality go down, but the quantity goes down also. You have a whole lot less kids doing them, and they're doing them to be doing them and not getting better at them. So we have those, each kid will take a semester of creative writing and a 9 weeks of keyboarding. And in that 4th 9 weeks, what we do is we take the kids and we kind of see where they need help before they go into state testing. And when we do our test prep, or they call it boot camp at high school, or whatever you want to call it, we put those kids where we think they need to be, and especially depending on what they're going to be asked to do in April. 7th grade, we're probably not going to put them as heavy in the writing during that time, because their writing portion of the test is basically just grammar and that sort of thing. They're not really writing an entire essay, but we want our 8th graders definitely to be practicing more essays during that time. So we try and stagger, we stagger the 9 weeks depending on what that group of kids is going to be taking in April. We try not to set up anything in relation to testing, but we also want to prepare them for what they're going to be held accountable to when April rolls around. So.
And their written test is keyboarding on the computer?
Yes, yes, yeah. Yeah, but the keyboarding is very important, obviously. So,
yes.
And it's not just important for the writing test. It's very beneficial for those kids to know how to use a keyboard before they go on computer apps as a freshman at high school. Chris and I talked about that numerous times. And if we get rid of keyboarding at the junior high and don't have it at the lower levels, then those kids aren't going to learn how to type until they get into. They're not going to learn how to type accurately until they get into high school at the freshman level. Then it puts them behind in taking the computer apps classes or whatever those technology classes are. But yes, I do think our STEM program has been very beneficial to that, and the changes we've made with that, and making it a core class for every student, and still offering the elective classes, which we call the Our World classes. We have Building Our World, Exploring Our World, and those type of things. And so they build rockets and build bridges and learn how to create apps, all those type of things. But as far as moving our STEM as a core class, has not only benefited our science, it's helped our math, because our that puts our STEM teacher now on a team of teachers that gets to meet with the math teacher and the science teacher regularly, just like everybody else does, and so they can really plan their lessons in conjunction with the topics that are going on in the regular classroom as well.
That's great.
So.
Do you know anything that like attributes to why the 8th grade math scores statewide is so significantly low? I mean, it's so much lower. It's 20%. I mean, it's like.
I can give you the answer. I don't know if it's not going to be politically correct, so stop me whenever you want to.
Well, I'm just curious. I mean, because it's significantly lower than the state average on all the other subjects, so.
The way the test is being done is, the argument became, why is Oklahoma ranking so low nationally on this national NAEP test, yet they're ranking so high on their state tests? There was this big gap in saying, why is 76% of 8th grade students passing the Oklahoma standardized test, but only 20% of them are passing the NAEP test? The answer to that is, the highest that the NAEP 8th grade math test has ever been is 44%. There's never been a state score higher than 44% on the 8th grade math test when it comes to NAEP. And the reason why is because it's not a grade level test. They're testing 8th graders on a general knowledge of math, not an 8th grade test. Oklahoma is testing 8th graders based on 8th grade standards, not 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th of general knowledge. So when you're looking at these scores, okay, and why are they so low, all right, when they do the cut scores for these tests, they make sure it matches where they want Oklahoma to rank when it comes to NAEP, so the state test matches what the national test says. It's a joke.
Wow.
Okay.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Thanks, Robbie.
Thanks for clarifying that.
Before Chris, I didn't want to fill in a couple of blanks there before Chris starts on the high school. And thank you, Mr. Rainwater.
That's okay. That's okay.
When you look at what we're doing from 3rd grade and really from pre-K through 8th grade, because that's really what we're talking about. 7 years ago, when we started this, when I became superintendent, and that kind of coincided with a whole lot of the report card and this focus on scores and things like that. And I can remember sitting in some of those meetings with the administrators where I wasn't sure that they weren't going to become suicidal or at least need counseling. And that's when we changed the conversation to focus on where we are as opposed to the state average. Because we're funded similarly in each district in this state for what we can do in the classroom. And so the measure of the work our teachers are doing needs to be bounded by the state average. As a state, if we want to have the discussion of raising that average, that turns into a funding discussion many times. Now, saying that to say this, if you look at, and this trend of the scores has held, even though we've changed ways we've measured it, the trend has held where the 3rd grade are about where they have been, and by the time they're in 8th grade, they are above the state average. And that has been consistent in the last 7 years. That tells me that we are growing these kids. And that's why when I first look at these, when I look at the 3rd grade and I kind of get down in the dumps, and then I look at and then I go through all of it and I see what we're doing, and then I'm reminded this happens every year. And that's a tribute to our faculty and staff for taking a kid in pre-K that may not have the abilities of the average Oklahoma student. And by the time they're in 8th grade, they exceed those abilities. And that's something that, and we now have a 7-year picture of that has been consistent. So, sorry, Chris, but I didn't want to bring your thunder.
In fact, you took the words out of my mouth, because I was going to say, as a high school principal, that's very encouraging to me, because we know where our kids are when we get them. And you can see that they've continued to progress as they go up from elementary to junior high. And now, as far as high school is concerned, this is kind of new territory for us this year, because our scores are based on the ACT, which we've been wanting that for quite some time. In the past, everything's been based on the NP instruction exams in each of the 4 subject areas. And so now the data that we're given is directly from our ACT results. And, we'll go ahead and get started then with that. Whoops. Okay. What we're looking at here, and I've got to clarify exactly this information and what this means as far as the percentage. Well, what ACT has done is they've been able to set a standard, what they call the college readiness benchmark scores. And there's a range of these scores, but basically they're saying that if a student can make an 18 or better on their ACT, their sub-score in English, then they have a 50% chance of scoring at least a C or higher on a college level comparable class, or a 75% chance of scoring at least a C or higher. Okay? So, with that being said, there's a benchmark score that they've given, and basically what they did is they tracked these students as they went into college, and they compared their sub-scores on the different parts of the ACT to a college level class, and they've been able to come up with some empirical data to show that this is about what a student will achieve in a college level class. And so with that being said, statewide this year on the ACT, these are the juniors. The ones we looked at in the earlier slide that Doug gave were the graduating seniors of 2018. These are juniors that will graduate this spring in 2019. And 16% of our kids met those college benchmark standards. The state average was 20%. So we're just a little bit behind there. And I'm going to go through each one, and then I'm going to tell you some things that we're kind of doing to improve our scores in this area. 11th grade English. English on the ACT and reading English is more usage and grammar and punctuation. And we've kind of gotten away from that a little bit, and so we're going to try to emphasize that a little bit more and get back to that. As you guys probably know, kids today do a lot of texting and get on social media, and I wouldn't say that their usage and grammar and spelling skills are real apt. If anything, they're inept, but I think that probably contributes a little bit to that. But at the same time, we're going to make an emphasis, and our teachers are doing a really good job of using a lot of this grammar work as I go around to the classrooms as their board starters when they're walking in, and they have to correct sentences, and I think it's good practice for the ACT. In science, it's 16 to 20%. As far as the percent, and again, if you look at statewide and all the kids are taking tests, you think 20%, that's not very good. But again, we're testing every junior in our school and in the state, and not all of these kids, as I mentioned earlier, are actually going to go on to college. But they are taking the test, and you can see here the reading is where we've really closed the gap. Compared to the other, they're just a few percentage points behind, 28 and 30%. And again, this is what ACT considers college readiness benchmark scores. And so what we're doing, and I can already see the results because as I look at this, I've got the data from last year too. And in English alone last year, we had a discrepancy of 14 percentage points, whereas this year our discrepancy was 7. So we pretty much cut that in half in 1 year. And I should have probably put that up there too. And then in reading, there was a discrepancy between last year's seniors and this year's juniors of 10 percentage points between district and state. And this year, as you can see, there's only a 2%. So I'm seeing growth there. But what we're doing is we're working on ACT prep. And last year we had 50 site licenses that the kids were using during Power Hour. This year we've got 100. And what I'm going to do is I'm waiting until January to start those kids on ACT prep. Last year we started in September, and 30 each month we're working on it. Well, by the time they took the test in April, out of sight, out of mind. So this year, with more site licenses, I can start in January, and we'll have about 100 kids or 75 kids to 100 kids each month. And then when we take it in April, they've all had the opportunity to take the ACT prep. Another thing that we're really, it's a different from elementary school up to high school, the ACT is a time test, whereas the state test, they have all the time they want. And that is the biggest challenge of our kids when they take the ACT is that for math, there's 60 problems in 60 minutes. And so you don't have an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours, unlimited time. You have to get in there and manage your time wisely. And we're also taking the pre-ACT. So Wednesday, all of our sophomores will take the pre-ACT, which is basically like the ACT. And that is a great practice test in preparation for their junior year when it actually counts. And we're comparing that data from their sophomore years to their junior year to look for growth individually with our students. And I think that's going to help. But getting back to the time, our math teachers are really, whenever they give benchmark exams, they give them an hour to take the test. And so we're trying to give them the same type of scenario, testing situation that they'll encounter on the ACT, because some kids, and I mean, some people in general, they just, with time, they don't do well with it. So they got to practice it, and they got to learn to manage their time, and there's some different test-taking strategies that they can focus on in the different subject areas that help them manage that time element. But we are working hard there, and you know, this right here is probably the one that I'm most proud of, because this is the percent of students that were met the benchmark, college readiness benchmark standards in all four. Because a lot of times kids will like to be really good in English, but not very good in math, or they're really good in math and science, but they're not very good in English. Well, these are the percent of kids that passed all four of them. And if you take our top kids at Guthrie High School and compare them to the top kids across Oklahoma, look there. I'll take our top along with everyone else. And so state average was only 11%, but if you take our top kids, and this year we have like 238 kids, that's like 23 kids, and it's probably no coincidence that we have like 30 kids right now that are up for valedictorian. That's a very good indicator of the percent of kids that we have that are our top level kids and are scoring really high, and will go on to college and do great things. So anyway, that's good. Did everyone kind of get that then? And again,
Yes.
It's all new to us. This first year we've actually used the ACT data, and so we know, we kind of have an idea now what we need to focus on and work on, and we'll continue to do so. And I think you're going to continue to see improvements in our scores from one year to the next. Plus, I'm pleased because we're testing, Doug did mention it, but like if you compare last year, this year, we actually tested like 15 more kids than we did the year before, and we either maintained or we're just a little bit above what we were the year before. So I think that's improvement in and of itself. Any questions?
Any questions for any of them?
I had a comment, not so much a question, and I think I made a similar comment last year. You guys have set such a high standard for yourselves, and you can see the disappointment when you say, you know, we're comparing it to a 30% or a 40%. And so you can see the drive and the desire that you have to improve these students. And I know that we've seen it in the reports that you've presented over the last couple of years, where, you know, when the target keeps changing, you still keep striving. And every single one of you talked about how you're analyzing the data that you're getting, and you're collaborating together, taking ideas from one school to the other to improve so that you're preparing that for the long term. And I just want to say thank you, and that what you guys are doing is very, very impressive.
Very well said.
Yes. Thank you. Second.
That was an information-only item, so no action by the board is needed.
Okay, agenda item 14 is the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve? And
I make a motion.
which one do we need to pull?
Yeah, I make a motion we approve consent agenda item 14, pull items A and B, please.
Second.
Okay. We had a second. Roll call, please.
Davis.
Yes.
Watts.
Yes?
Smedley.
Yes.
Pearson.
Yes.
Flagg.
Abstain. Okay, yes.
Bennett Johnson.
Yes.
Salee.
Yes.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
Now we need a motion to approve the consent agenda items A and B.
Do them
We'll
separate.
separate them individually. Okay, so a motion for item A, please.
Mr. President, I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda item 14A.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Davis.
Yes.
Watts.
Abstain?
Smedley.
Yes.
Pearson.
Yes.
Flagg.
Abstain.
Bennett Johnson.
Yes.
Salee.
Yes.
5 ayes, 2 abstentions.
Mr. President, I make a motion that we approve consent agenda item 14B.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Davis.
Yes.
Watts.
Yes.
Smedley.
Yes.
Pearson.
Yes.
Flagg.
Abstain.
Bennett Johnson.
Yes.
Salee.
Yes.
6 ayes, 1 abstention.
Okay, agenda item 15A, part of the business agenda. Recommendation, consideration, and action to adopt calendar of regularly scheduled school board meetings for 2019.
This is an annual event that we have to file with the county clerk. It's listed on page 60, and I'm getting there. In order to meet the Open Meeting Act requirements of the state of Oklahoma, we have to file this with the county clerk prior to December 1st, I believe, 15th, yes. And that will set the dates for all of the board meetings for the 2019 calendar year, not school year, but calendar year. And so the dates all lined up, and every once in a while we have to move around around the 4th of July, but it worked out this year. And so that's the dates that are on page 60 are the second Monday of the month, and recommend approval.
I move we approve the calendar of regularly scheduled school board meetings for 2019.
Second?
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Davis.
Yes.
Watts.
Yes.
Smedley.
Yes.
Pearson.
Yes.
Flagg.
Yes.
Bennett Johnson.
Yes.
Salee.
Yes.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
Agenda item 15B is discussion and possible board action to pass the 2019 annual school election resolution.
This looks a little different than it has in the past. Some of the wording is a little different because the law changed. And if you remember this last legislative session, the election of school board members, we will have the same filing period of December 3rd through the 5th. We'll have an election on February 12th if more than 2 file for either of the seats that are to be considered. If only 2 file, the election will be in April 2nd. In the event that there is, in February, an election with 3 candidates, and one candidate gets more than 50% of the vote, they are elected. If a runoff is necessary, that will be in April. I can't tell you why they did all this, but
Why, that was extra work.
but
Yeah.
it wasn't the main focus of the last legislative session, so it happened. But and obviously Mr. Flagg is serving out the term of Mr. Pennington through until this next election, because Mr. Pennington resigned with more than 50% of his term remaining. And so that's as good of an explanation probably as I can give you on all of this. We took the resolution from the State School Board Association. Recommend approval.
I make a motion that we approve the 2019 annual school election resolution.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion or questions? Roll call, please.
Davis.
Yes.
Watts.
Yes.
Smedley.
Yes.
Pearson.
Yes.
Flagg.
Yes.
Bennett Johnson.
Yes.
Salee.
Yes.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
Agenda item 15C, recommendation, consideration, and action upon renewal agreement with Northwest Evaluation Association.
This is an annual contract that we bring to you on the evaluation instruments that we are required to provide for our students. There is a list of them. We have gravitated toward the MAPS testing And Ms. Walters is very diligent in making sure that we get the best deal and bang for our buck annually. Recommend approval.
Make a motion, we approve the renewal agreement with Northwest Evaluation Association.
Second.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Davis.
Yes.
Watts.
Yes.
Medley.
Yes.
Pearson.
Yes.
Flagg.
Yes.
Bennett Johnson.
Yes.
Sallee.
Yes.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
Agenda item 15D, recommendation, consideration, and action upon the 2019 Oklahoma Youth Risk Behavior Survey for 9th through 12th grade students, sponsored by the Oklahoma State Department of Health.
This is a random, they keep telling us this is random on this, but we seem to be always drawn out of the hat. But this is an item for the Health Department, and it assists them. And we have a gentleman from the Health Department here to discuss that if need be. But it provides them a way to target their funding so that the most needs are addressed in the state. I think that's, and you may fill the blanks in.
To the random as well, it is random. The system is done by the CDC, it doesn't see the school name, just based on enrollment, and it rolls through. Some of the larger districts seem to get picked, more often than the smaller ones. Y'all also participated in another first and fifth grade health survey with us. Well, y'all have been part of that. So it's not so much targeting as we only get 50 schools statewide. And so we are one of only 3 states in the nation that gets weighted data every year we participate in YRBS, which normally we're number 1 or number 5 in the nation for bad things, teen pregnancy, cardiovascular disease, obesity. So the reason why we're able to get weighted data is because so many schools say yes. Once we're in the school, most students say yes. We don't have a problem with students opting out. Normally if they do not participate, it's because they're not present that day for some reason. So really, it's the participation of the school that makes it so successful. And we do send home consent forms, so the parents have an opportunity to opt out as well. It provides great data. We used to have these, this is the old show, where it's the intro, methods, all the research and study. I know a lot of y'all reached this level of data, I am too, but our population has moved where they want to see one page of things, data points, recommendations, what can we do? And a lot of our administrators will actually post these up in their school versus you might read this at your desk, but they want their population to see these things. So these data get used, not only that for state and national performance measures, but they're very helpful. I could go on and on, just to say we really would appreciate if y'all could participate. And part of the reason why is, like I said, the 50 schools only, if y'all say no, we don't have a replacement. So we sample without replacement. So we try hard to encourage schools. The high school will get a $500 stipend for participating. And we provide all the materials. We send our staff to do it. And normally it's just 2 classes on average. I mean, it could be 4, it could be 1. That's random as well. So we randomly select from the class list. And we do all the work to say, please let's come in for 1 hour at a time.
I got a question. Are these results or surveys shared with the district? Because, as I look at some of the questions dealing with depression or suicide and things, do you share that information?
Yes. In past cycles, I would send an email to the State Department of Education and say, please shoot out the email to all superintendents in the state. They didn't do it this last cycle. I mean, we do it every 2 years, so it was 2 years ago. But we try to do it the year after we get the data, so every intervening year. And so, as you mentioned that, even though these are statewide, generalized, you can still look at it as a district and say, unless we believe we're really high or really lower than the state average, we can probably assume our kids are somewhere near that. So like you said, depression, it's close to 25% of kids say they feel so hopeless or sad for 2 weeks or more in a row, which is almost a clinical definition of depression. So that's startling, and it should start all of us, because all of our indicators in this survey, whether it's alcohol use, tobacco use, sexual behaviors, physical activity, nutrition, they're all either going down or going up in the positive direction. Depression and suicide are staying straight, along with bullying. So those 1 depression question, 4 suicide, and 2 bullying questions are just plateaued. They're not improving, they're not getting worse, they're not getting better. And so it really shows us there's a mental health component to our kids. And even though we're improving these other behaviors, it doesn't mean we should stop measuring the data or stop trying to improve the behaviors. We want to keep that trend going the right way, but we want to keep measuring this to find out what's going on with our kids. And now, we only can find out so much at the surface level. Y'all in your programs and your interactions with kids, you'll find out what is going on, whether it's at home, outside of school, but part of the school community, like online bullying. So they may not be being bullying on school property, but probably from the school community outside of school. So there's things like that that we all know that will help carry on this picture of this baseline data that they're gathering.
But the baseline data for Guthrie is sent to our superintendent?
Well, it's not
You just put it all with the 50 schools and
Yes.
send it to the state?
Because the way that the random sample is done, our data will gather from your school, won't represent your school. But when they're pulled with the classes that are random selected from around state, they're pulled to say this is a statewide representation. So we don't have Guthrie level data. But we're the only survey or only data source that I know of that gathers this type of behavior on Oklahoma teenage students. There's no other data source in the nation that tells us what's going on with Oklahoma youth. And so if someone else did it and they had it and y'all said no, I'd go, okay, but if they don't, this is it. This is the one and only one. And so I just say, please, if you would, consider us.
We like the $500.
It's not a lot, but anything else.
No, anything, amen.
So the opt-out form does go home with the child?
Yes.
And then,
So once we select the teachers who will get doing the survey, that will come to the survey, we'll say, you send this to consent home form with those students. And we choose passive, which means the parent only has to return it if they don't want their student to participate. We can do active, that does typically decrease the participation rate because the student has to bring it back whether the parent says no or yes. And not saying your kids are capable of bringing us back, but all kids, once something goes home, you try to get it back. But like I said, we choose passive. If you prefer active, we can do that as well. But we get every opportunity for the parent to opt out. And then the student can opt out. We read the script before the survey, so you can not take the survey right now. You can start taking it. If you don't like the questions, you can stop taking it. So they have every opportunity to stop and opt out.
And there's no personal data
No,
about the students included in that?
No name, no, we asked them their age, race, and gender in the survey, but no names, nothing like that. We can say, don't write your name on the survey. In our script that we read, every administrator reads the same script to every student. This is anonymous, confidential, don't write your name on the survey. We tell us teachers as well as y'all, once the data are returned, they go to CDC, and they're all grouped together, so we don't see class, district, school, nothing. Once I have the data back, I can't tell where it's from. All I see is a statewide average.
So basically, you just have the kids in a room.
Yes.
And you're handing out these tests.
Right.
So there's no one-on-one interaction.
Not at all.
During these
So for
test
example, we'll
taking.
take a class schedule, and we'll look at second grade only. We'll randomly select, I'll only get 2 classes, Mrs. Jones' English class and Mr. Smith's math. And we go in, so normally what they do is a normal class period. We say, right now, we're just going to do the survey. She takes roll, we hand out the survey, we read the script. They take the survey, and then we put it in a tie-back envelope and seal it in front of them so they see we're not looking at your data or your responses. And if we couldn't tell them in front of them, it's just a Scantron. And so they, it's just classroom setting. We make them sit, spaced out like they're taking a test. We ask the teachers to stay up front with us, that way they feel like they can take the survey of anonymity and not someone peeking over the shoulder. If they ask me, Mr. Burr, what do you mean by weapon, or what do you mean by this, I tell them I cannot interpret for them, answer to the best of your ability. So there's no assistance in that they just have to read it. If they can't take it without assistance, we don't allow them to take it. And if they're able to read and take it, we let them take it all by themselves. So yes, no one-on-one interaction, just a classroom setting.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
I make a motion, we approve the 2019 Oklahoma Youth Risk Behavior Survey for 9th through 12th grade students, sponsored by the Oklahoma State Department of Health.
Second.
there's a motion and a second. Is there any other questions or discussion by the board? Roll call, please.
Davis.
Yes.
Watts.
Yes.
Smedley.
Yes.
Pearson.
Yes.
Flagg.
Yes.
Bennett Johnson.
Yes.
Salee.
Yes.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
Agenda item 15E is recommendation, consideration, and action upon memorandum of understanding between Rose State College and Guthrie High School for the dual concurrent program for 2018 to 2019.
Items E and F are annual items under consideration by the board for our concurrent enrollment with our relationship. Item E is the relationship with Rose State College, and item F is with Western Oklahoma State University. One of the things, if you are wondering why we're just now doing this, a lot of times they're not totally sure until they put the actual name of the instructor on there, and for the whole year. And so sometimes they're struggling to get the names for the second semester until a little bit into the first semester. And so that's part of the reason for the timing of this. And sometimes they can't, there's classes that they can offer that are new, or classes that, especially in the spring semester, that they don't have it then without an instructor for, and they have to pull that back. So recommend approval.
Do we have a motion to approve agenda item 15E?
I make a motion, we approve the memorandum of understanding between Rose State College and Guthrie High School for the dual concurrent program for 2018-2019.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Davis.
Yes.
Watts.
Yes.
Smedley.
Yes.
Pearson.
Yes.
Flagg.
Yes.
Bennett Johnson.
Yes.
Khalid.
Yes.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
Agenda item 15F is the recommendation, consideration, and action upon memorandum of understanding between Northwest Oklahoma State University and Guthrie High School for dual concurrent programs for 2018 to 2020. We have a motion to approve.
I make a motion that we approve the memorandum of understanding between Northwestern Oklahoma State University and Guthrie High School for the dual concurrent program for 2018 through 2020.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Davis.
Yes.
Watts.
Yes.
Smedley.
Yes.
Pearson.
Yes.
Flagg.
Yes.
Bennett Johnson.
Yes.
Khalid.
Yes.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
Agenda item 15G, recommendation, consideration, and action upon change order number 2 for Pope Contracting, Inc. at Guthrie Junior High School.
We discussed this in committee, and this is kind of symptomatic of renovations of buildings that are the age of our junior high. When you start doing some renovation, especially on the exterior, you're certain to find some surprises, and we obviously found some on the bottom side of that building, and now we've got a couple on the top that we need to take care of as well. And so this is recommend approval of this change order, and this will also allow us to get new doors, new door facings for the front of the building.
Make a motion, we approve the change order number 2 for Pope Contracting, Inc. at Guthrie Junior High School.
Second.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Davis.
Yes.
Watts.
Yes.
Smedley.
Yes.
Pearson.
Yes.
Flagg.
Yes.
Bennett Johnson.
Yes.
Khalid.
Yes.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
Agenda item 15H, presentation of proposed new district policy, C-15A, service animals.
Pages 95 through 97 of your board packet contain a new policy. This will be the first reading. There's no action required by the board tonight. It's a presentation to the board and the public of the policy, and it will be up for consideration at the next scheduled board meeting.
So, any discussion on that?
Will we be able to, when we have service dogs, will we be requiring liability insurance for the dog?
We will not, and that is on discussion of our attorney.
Okay.
And I have an email for you.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Agenda items.
Did you happen to ask him yet about whether, where it says that it's recommended they be identifiable as
That was
opposed to?
also recommended that we follow what their original recommendation was.
Any reason? I mean, why?
Yeah.
I have the email for you.
Okay, thank you.
Agenda item 16, proposed executive session for the purpose of discussing employment of personnel FMLA request, resignation, separation from employment, and transfer of position request. All is set out on the personnel reports. A discussion of extra duty assignments as listed for 2018 to 2019. Disclosure of which information would violate the confidentiality requirements of state and/or federal law, all pursuant to 25 Oklahoma Statute Section 307, B1 and 7. Do we have a motion to go into
I move we
executive
go into
session?
executive session.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Davis.
Yes.
Watts.
Yes.
Smedley.
Yes.
Pearson.
Yes.
Flagg.
Yes.
Bennett Johnson.
Yes.
Salee.
Yes.
7 ayes, 0.
Okay, it is time to acknowledge the board's return to open session. Only items in Agenda 16 were discussed in the executive session and no votes were taken. This shall constitute the executive session minutes. So agenda item 17, vote on action is set out on the personnel reports.
Mr. President, I make a motion that we approve the personnel report.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Davis.
Yes.
Watts.
Yes.
Smedley.
Yes.
Pearson.
Yes.
Flagg.
Yes.
Bennett Johnson.
Yes.
Salee.
Yes.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
Agenda item 18, action upon recommendation of extra duty assignments for 2018 to 2019. Do we have a motion to approve?
I make a motion that we approve the extra duty assignments for 2018-2019.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Davis.
Yes.
Watts.
Yes.
Smedley.
Yes.
Pearson.
Yes.
Flagg.
Yes.
Bennett Johnson.
Yes.
Salee.
Yes.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
Agenda item 19, recommendation, consideration, and action upon approval for Kristen Knapp to be classified as an adjunct teacher for 4th grade music at Cotterill Elementary.
I make a motion that we approve Kristen Knapp to be classified as an adjunct teacher for 4th grade music at Cotterill Elementary.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Davis.
Yes.
Watts.
Yes.
Smedley.
Yes.
Pearson.
Yes.
Flagg.
Yes.
Bennett Johnson.
Yes.
Salee.
Yes.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
Agenda item 20, recommendation, consideration, and action to accept any resignations offered since the posting of this agenda.
We have none.
Agenda item number 21, discussion of possible action on new business not known about or could not have been reasonably foreseen at the time of the agenda posting.
We have none.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Mr. President, I make a motion we adjourn.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Davis.
Yes.
Watts.
Yes.
Smedley.
Yes.
Pearson.
Yes.
Flagg.
Yes.
Bennett Johnson.
Yes.
Salee.
Yes.
7 ayes, 0 nays.